going on. I don't know what is going on. The technical things. Yes. I think now it's streaming. Yes, now it's
Yeah.
streaming. Let me do the last magic. I think that was the allow embedding. Yes, now we are live.
On X, it says
Yes.
video
Last
unavailable. It
thing.
shows.
No, I have to do some magic. Yes, now we are live. Sorry. No, now it's working.
No problem.
I'm my own product. So that's the problem when you are your own producer in yes, it's working.
Yeah, I see it on X. All right.
Let me see. Let me check. Yes, it's okay. So now we are live. Yes, now we are live. Hello, this is the Bitcoin Libertarian. Our guest today is Bram Kanstein. Bram is a Bitcoin advocate, educator, and host of the Bitcoin for Millennials podcast, where he explores Bitcoin role in modern finance, market cycles, macroeconomic trends, and wealth preservation. He critiques debt-based fiat system while highlighting Bitcoin's advantage like liquidity and accessibility, and runs resource like Start with Bitcoin for Newcomers. In his podcast, Bram blends philosophy with Bitcoin discussions, recently covering topics like the 2025 cycle, ETFs, and institutional adoption. Today, we will talk about Bitcoin education, adoption, and if millennials are here to lead the Bitcoin revolution. Bram, welcome.
Amazing intro. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. And I know that you have short time to be with us. The first question is, how were you orange peel?
Oh, eventually, I think how I really got orange pilled is actually listening to probably people like Greg Foss and James Lavish. Like I discovered Bitcoin 10 years ago, so like 12 even, like 2013. I always thought, the internet needs a currency. Then I found Bitcoin, and I thought it was cheap and that I could trade and that I could get rich. So I day traded for a few months, then realized I'm not a trader. And then just slowly started studying Bitcoin more, but also like Litecoin at the time. And there was like a bunch of these coins, but just like messing around on the internet, trying to understand, okay, what is this? Just slowly studying. Then over time, of course, I found Ethereum. I got distracted by Ethereum and all the ICO stuff and NFT stuff and whatnot. And along the way, I sold all my Bitcoin at like 4,000 or something after I bought between like 100 and then 300. And at the time, I felt great. Of course, I was a student, so I thought, okay, I'm I'm very smart that I did that. Eventually, of course, not a good choice, but you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. And I didn't understand, I think, mainly, why it existed. Like I really looked at it from a technological point of view. So that's, I think, why I was also distracted with these other coins and their narratives and however they talked about what they were building. But then over time, when I started diving into more like the financial and economical dimensions of Bitcoin, and really understanding why does this exist, that's when I really started going more down what they call the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and also just selling all my crypto and only going in on Bitcoin. I'm basically all in on Bitcoin. I'm fiat poor, but the people that helped me along the way, that really I think opened my mind to the problem with the money system that I was also participating in. Um, Realizing that I was not an actor in this money system, but basically a subject. Were people like Greg Foss and James Lavish, people that really talk about the problems with a debt-based monetary system, with all the deficits, especially in the US, of course. But I'm in Europe, but here it is no different. It's just a different degree, right? But if the world reserve currency basically lost 99.8% of its value in its entire existence in this form, um, yeah, how is it with the rest of the of the monies, right? And the money that I'm forced to use. And so um, people like James and Greg are really articulate and have, I think, a vast experience that they use to eventually see Bitcoin. And um, people that are successful in the financial world even today are still ignoring Bitcoin, right? And so people that have actually made it in the financial world and then changed their mind to understand that well, basically they were participating in a predatory money system, and seeing how Bitcoin is better and then being able to articulate that, yeah, has been a huge signal for me along the way.
Yes, I think that you share the journey that many of us, the early, as I put in my profile, I discovered Bitcoin in 2010, 2011, and took me 10 years to understand it. And in a way, I did the same. I went into shitcoins. I even gambled Bitcoin. And then when I saw the rabbit hole, and I went into the rabbit hole during the pandemic, I went all in and become an ultra maxi. And I think that the maxi journey, I always say, is like falling in love. You feel amazed in the first impression when you see Bitcoin. Then you are in this stage where you are like, okay, going, seeing other people probably, until you finally realize that this is the way, and you go all in. And once you go all in, you want to talk to everyone about this magic thing that you are living.
I've never heard that, but yeah, I would probably agree. I think, yeah, like now I'm just at the stage where I think like sell for what, basically, right? Like at one point, I think you have to acknowledge that apparently, this is a superior system for money, and it is an open source computer protocol for money. It is future proof in that sense, right? It is the money of the digital age. And even if you look at like, or well, if you look at like all the other alternatives, even real estate that people are using as a substitute for money because they cannot save in cash anymore, um, yeah, on each characteristic, well, Bitcoin is superior to most of the characteristics that are connected to certain types of assets. So things like gold or real estate, or just cash, right? So yeah, once you see that, you cannot really unsee that, and it would also be kind of foolish to yeah, randomly sell your Bitcoin for any of these things. I do think that if you have the opportunity to purchase a house so that you can grow a family in or something, right? Of course, that is a good reason to sell Bitcoin. I think the point to make is more that true Bitcoin and understanding how scarce it is, also when like I just said, I sold it and I felt amazing about it, right? And looking back at it, I now have way less Bitcoin than I had before. Like I have to work harder for it, right? And kind of getting confronted with that scarcity, what I think what that does to you is that you actually become way more conscious about money and how you're spending your time to earn money, how you're saving your money, how you want to spend your money, right? So I think it eventually turns you into a very conscious thinker about money that could turn out, you could turn out to be very frugal, but that's of course very like personality driven. But I think it's just very interesting to see that a lot of people share that thought around. It just made me way more conscious about what am I spending my time on, what am I spending my money on. And yeah, that is something that I think a lot of people find value in. And yeah, I've yet to see someone who was a true Bitcoiner and then was just like, fuck it, I'm just not going to use this thing anymore, right? And yeah, I just find that super fascinating.
Yes, once you become a Bitcoiner, you can be a shitcoiner or a not believer like Sailor was at the beginning, and then become a Bitcoiner. But once you become a Bitcoiner, there is no going back. There is not going back. And I want to talk about first of all, the title of your show, Bitcoin for Millennials, because I'm sure that you are also a millennial like me. I'm from 1981. I'm sure you're younger than me, but you are in the same age. You think that Bitcoin is the money, or the revolution is led by millennials, because we are in the middle of, we are the ones that are in the middle of the digital revolution. We saw the digital revolution be born. We are also the first generation. For example, our parents can work and have a house with a simple job, and now for us it's very difficult. Do you think that Bitcoin, the millennials are going to get the Bitcoin revolution?
Yes, I once had a guest on, Keith Laska, who said Bitcoin is the S&P 500 for millennials, and it's basically what the S&P 500 was for Gen X, or what real estate was for boomers, is what Bitcoin is for millennials, right? Like each generation has an opportunity to build wealth with an introduction of a new asset. So I think that's one, like that's the opportunity that is there. I also think millennials, just by the way we grew up on this edge of analog technology and moving into digital technology, like being true digital natives, uh, us understanding this physical connection of this digital money, I think we're actually primed for that, uh, to understand that, because we've lived through this technological advancement, right? But next to that, why do we need it? Basically, the people I just mentioned, like Greg Foss, they talk a lot about the debt spiral in America. Like America is only borrowing more to pay off old loans, right? And if you go, for example, to the usdebtclock.org, you see that like when a child is born, the government already has like $100,000 of debt taken on by the government for this baby that's literally a minute old or something. And so once you understand that that is not stopping, that's like a vicious cycle that's only becoming worse, and basically eventually will eat away at the underpinning of the entire global financial system, right? That is underpinned by sovereign debt, countries, institutions buying sovereign debt because that is supposedly safe. Um, that eventually will lead to a loss of trust. I don't know about implosion or whatever. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but over time, more people should realize that the underpinning of this system is flawed, fundamentally flawed, and will eventually drive the value of fiat money back to its original value, which is zero. And so when you think about that in terms of millennials, we've been told or sold a certain story about what are the steps you take in your life, right? And eventually, well, you especially in America, right, you take on some debt, you go to college, you get a job, you pay it off, you get a house, which is also debt, and you put money aside for your pension, and then at 65 you can retire, basically, right? That's the very shortcut short summary of that. um but yeah, what does the world look like in 30 years when we want to retire? So if you see that, not sure if I'm entirely correct, but I think this year, or like every 100 days, $1 trillion gets added to the national debt. I think that's correct, in the
Yes, I
US,
think
right?
yes.
Like what is it in 30 years? So do you think that in 30 years people will still be bamboozled by all the gaslighting and the obscurity around fiat money, or do you think they've woken up to a better form of money, verifiably better form of money, a money that no one controls, that you can verify individually, that has instant global final settlement, that you can use to, participate in a global economy online. And not even talking about like all the AI stuff that's happening in parallel, actually, which I think is an accelerator for the destruction of fiat money, and also the adoption of Bitcoin. But I think that's a question that many millennials should ask themselves, right? I, for example, am not sure if my mother even has their pension, right? Like, she's going to retire within a year. She worked for 40 years, and she tells me, "Yeah, I hope the money is there." And I think, that's horrible. But if she already has that, is there any way that I can assure myself and my family of a retirement in 30 years? And I think with the fiat money system, that is absolutely not possible. I can already come to that conclusion today and not in 30 years. So that basically forces me, I want to say invite, but I think it forces people to think about, okay, but what should I do, right? What should I do? And I think there is two choices. One is, I'm going to be a consumer. I'm just going to be nihilistic about the future. I'm just going to be like, yeah, whatever, other people will fix it for me, or I'll just be, some slave or a peasant or a serf, or however you want to call that, and I'm just gonna, consume today, or and have a high time preference, or I'm going to take action. I'm going to figure out what all these crazy Bitcoiners are talking about when they are talking about, solving or protecting yourself against monetary debasement, against price inflation, having a low time preference, like a long-term outlook, becoming a builder. So yeah, I think that eventually is the choice that you end up with if you do honestly a minimum amount of research and some logical thinking to just understand that, the money system that you are participating in, that you are forced to use, right, is fundamentally flawed and is heading for the gutter. Could be next year, could be in 20 years, but it's happening in our lifetime. And I think that's the biggest signal that I could send to my generational peers, and say, yeah, you should act today and really study Bitcoin, because for me, Bitcoin is the surest, I don't want to say bet, because it's not a bet, but it's one of the things that I've been most confident about in my life, adopting Bitcoin. And it's given me time and space now to also think about the future. And I'm very positive about the future. I'm able to build a family. I want to build a family for the future, right? There are many generational peers that think they shouldn't have a child because they cannot afford it, or what type of world am I putting this child in, etc. But Bitcoin has made me, given me a very positive outlook towards the future, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go. But the main reason because of that is that I know that I am in charge of my own wealth. I am protecting myself against all these things that I just mentioned.
I agree with you. It's funny because you live in Europe, I live in Hong Kong, and I'm from Argentina. We come from totally different cultural backgrounds, and you think the same as me. When you were talking about this, Bitcoin is giving you hope on the future. It's made you optimistic on the future. You want to start a family. It's the same that happens to me. It's crazy. And yeah, I agree with you with the pensions, that we grew in this period of time when we were taught, like, go to the university, find a job, stay saving for the future, not saving, but try to get retired. And I think that we don't have to think in 30 years. It's just with AI and other things that are happening, the world is going to change in the next 5 years. I don't give this 30-year thing. I don't know what you think.
Sorry, what was the last part?
No, the thing is that you said thinking about 30 years, that is probably the age that you
Yeah. You cannot even,
will retire.
yeah.
I'm thinking in 5 years.
Yes.
I don't think that the world in 5 years is going to be same as us now.
Yes, very good point. I fully agree. That's actually a great add-on. You shouldn't even think about it in 30 years. Like, what am I going to do in five? Yes, 100% agree. And these Silicon Valley tech people like Mark Andreessen, for example, they talk about, in the next 10 years we're going to see a level of innovation that is 100 years. But just based on my experience working with AI for my own ideas and my own projects, and seeing that how I'm applying AI has value for others in like a business context, uh, I had moments where I dove back into what I created with AI, and then I asked it like, okay, how many man hours would this have taken, right? Like, what would this have cost me or the company I'm selling something to, when they would have hired like a big four consulting firm, for example, right? And I mean, when I'm sitting somewhere, when I'm sitting working and I do something in 3 hours, and then the same AI that I'm working with says like, yeah, this would have probably taken like 6 weeks of research with like 3 people. I'm just thinking, perhaps it's going to be like 500 years in the next 10 years. Right? Like it is just so insane how much time you can save and how much productivity you can apply with AI already today, and it's the worst that it'll ever be today, right? So it's only going to accelerate. And um, I, I sometimes use this example of, anything that you see that people create, more and more people will be able to actually recreate that, or like reverse engineer ideas and then copy it and make it free, for example, right? So even just that, right? Like, I can screenshot Airbnb, put that screenshot in Claude code, and say like, build me an Airbnb clone working with database, everything, and scrape this obscure website where people that are into XYZ topic actually host homes, right? And then I make an Airbnb for target group X. Like, I can have that finished by tomorrow. And then when you see that, you can just copy that and do that for, you know, dog owners that want to travel to nature or whatever. Like, this is an endless thing, and it's only accelerating. Even like, I bought this bottle, was like $40 or something. There's going to be I think I can already make a scan with my phone. I load it up in some AI, I make a cat drawing, like a 3D drawing, and I find someone uh, close by that has an aluminium type printer or stamp or whatever. Like, I can recreate this bottle also within a week. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the whole point, is that everything will be copied and distributed, and AI is already a highway towards abundance of created things. Um, but and that ties into your first question, how did I get really orange pilled? It's listening to Jeff Booth talking about this exact thing and saying like, okay, but if this technology drives abundance, how are you going to measure the value of the abundance, right? If the abundance is inherently deflationary, so things become cheaper, right? So instead of $40, I maybe pay 20 next week, but in 2 years, this is going to be a $2 thing, right? So that is the trajectory that it's on. But if I'm pricing those gains, basically gains through uh, deflation, if I use a money that is only inflating, then I cannot properly determine the value of these technological advancements, right? And so when we talk about AI, I think everyone would agree that this is the most disrupting technological advancement that we are experiencing, well, definitely in our lifetimes, but probably ever, right? Maybe fire is at the same fire and the wheel, like these really big things. But definitely in our lifetimes, this is going way faster than anyone can imagine. And so these two forces, right? So the deflationary technological advancement force colliding with the inflationary money to hopefully determine what the value is of this technological advancement. You could basically argue that we will never have a good valuation of this technological advancement if we use fiat money. And so we can go into why Bitcoin, but I think you are correct. This is probably 5 years. Like you cannot even look ahead 5 years. Like, will fiat money even survive the AI age? I find that a very interesting question that you just helped me think of. Yeah, I don't know, and I think it's that insecurity, actually, that insecurity towards the future, that also invites you to study Bitcoin, right? This is also something that Saifedean Ammous talks about when he talks about this low and high time preference. So if you don't know how much time you have in your life, you are you're discounting the future, right? You have a certain anxiety towards the future that everyone has. There's like a base layer of anxiety towards the future for everyone, right? Like, I can walk outside, I can die because, or even someone can drive into my office here, right? Like now, like that can happen every time, right? So there is like this nature anxiety that actually forces you to live, right? But if there are outside sources that are influencing the value of your time and energy, or the value of what we just talked about, right? Like technological advancements, then it actually heightens your uncertainty towards the future. And I think that a natural effect that fiat money is the source of, I think, once you that's also something that I really took away as a signal in my journey. Like, once you see that, that basically it's other people that have no interest in your individual prosperity or your individual future, not as much as I do, right? And as you do for yourself, that they influence my idea or my feeling towards the future, and therefore influence my actions today. Once you like truly grok that, that is just super fucked up, because that is also the reason why some people don't have children, right? So because of something man-made, people are saying to their innate biological urges and the whole purpose of life, they are saying, nah, not for me. The life stops here with me because there is this money, blah blah, and I'm scared of it. I'm scared to take action. So this is it.
Yes. Yes, I think that what you point is all these, the couples don't decide to have children because fiat money has destroyed the savings and is destroying the money you earn day by day. Force you, for example, you're married and you need to work, your wife, to make ends meet. And then if you say, oh, if I have a child, it's going to cost something, I have to stop working, there is this problem. But now we are entering in an age of abundance. Bitcoin and AI together will bring us an age of abundance. As you said, you can copy the flask you bought and make it cheaper. That's why I think that the future with Bitcoin and AI is going to be super disruptive. And we need to see in 5 years. And one of the things I always say is that in 5 or 10 years, the wealth is going to be measured in Bitcoin. I don't think that a company is going to have a market cap of X amount of trillion or quadrillion dollars. It's going to have a market cap of X Bitcoins. It's going to be worth X, Y Bitcoins. Because fiat, probably we still use it in the form of stable coins or something like that, but it's going to be worthless and it's going to be devaluated minute by minute. So that's what I think about the future.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find a tweet, because sometimes there are these great tweets that actually show current valuations of companies, for example, or like how much cash they have, but then in Bitcoin, basically. I'm just quickly scrolling, but like already. This of course also partially the story of Michael. I cannot find it, but I'll try to share it. Like basically the story of Michael Saylor, like why he wants to buy Bitcoin, right? Like the whole idea that um, when for a company it's not different than for a person, right? But in a company, it is way more urgent what you do with your money, basically. So if you have savings or you have cash, you have several options, and all these options kind of show how much you believe in your uh, company, basically. And so uh, I once heard Michael Saylor say, like, if you give money back to, if you pay dividends to your investors, some people actually think like, oh, that's a great thing. But I agree that it's actually a bad thing, because you're basically saying, I am not able to use this. I'm not creative enough. I don't see enough opportunity to use all this money to actually grow our company, have more revenue, make the stock price go up. So you know what I'll do? I'll just give it to you as a dividend, basically. And I think a prime example is like Berkshire Hathaway has a crazy cash pile, right? Like Apple, Meta, they all have a crazy cash pile, and they're basically throwing value away instead of accruing value, instead of buying Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I can't find it, but there's these overviews, for example, where they show, you know, Nvidia is worth this amount of Bitcoin, Apple is worth this amount of Bitcoin, or Google just bought this company for that amount of Bitcoin. And like all these amounts of Bitcoin are more Bitcoin than will ever exist, right? And so once you understand the absolute verifiable digital scarcity of Bitcoin, this for me is how that connects back to being conscious about your financial choices, because if your value of a company, or as a person, your net worth is being measured in Bitcoin, and there are only 21 million, yeah, should you buy that other company of what is 24 million Bitcoin today, right? Or something
Yes,
like that.
and
So
also and
yeah.
also and also you need to analyze, you buy this company and how much is gonna rise your revenue or your profits per year. It's gonna be more than Bitcoin or less. And of course, as you said, you are buying a company for 24 million Bitcoin, something that is not gonna be exist, is not gonna exist ever. So it modifies the decisions.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and this is again back to the conscious choice. There is one choice that is okay. If Bitcoin is the best way to measure value in the world, it will over time eventually also attract that value, right? So people will sell real estate, they will sell gold, they will sell their stocks, and eventually move into um, into Bitcoin. Sorry, I lost. What did you ask? I lost my thought.
No, but basically, we were talking about the future and how companies, and I think GDP, activities, and company market cap, and the big numbers we're going to be measuring
Oh
Bitcoin
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
in the
yeah,
future.
so what I wanted to say, it goes back to either I make a simple conscious choice, which is I'm going to adopt the asset that accrues value over time because it is the most scarcest asset in the world, verifiably, right? And that is a simple thing to do, but not to get to that point, right? Like getting to that point is hard, but then when you're there, you're basically using Bitcoin as your hurdle rate, measuring everything else against the value accrual of Bitcoin, right? Or when you own a company and you want to grow in whatever way, this idea of Bitcoin as the hurdle rate actually helps you to make better business decisions. And just as it helps a founding team or a management team in a company help make better business decisions, it can actually also help you make better life decisions as an individual, because you have that optionality, right? You feel less that you are um, yeah expected to be investing, right? Or buy stuff constantly, or do stuff constantly, or whatever. But I think, I wonder about you, but if I ask my friends, like, have you ever thought about, what you really spent in the last, I don't know, 90 days? Um, Many of them probably don't really have a clue, right? So that being more conscious about your financial decisions, I think, is something that Bitcoin brings. And over time, will also show you that you should have started with that earlier, right? There is this website, I don't know the URL, but there you can like compare, um, if you bought a Nintendo Switch when it came out, or a PlayStation 5 when it came out. If you didn't buy the PlayStation 5, that was like $600, you would have like $4,000 in Bitcoin right now. Like so stuff like that. That I really like, because that helps you to see it, right? You also have this Google Chrome plugin that shows you all the prices that you come across online in Bitcoin. So that is an instant trigger to help you think about, okay, do I want to buy these $200, $300 sneakers, or do I want to buy some absolutely finite Bitcoin?
Yes, of course. Now I buy only the things that I need, because you measure this. I'm gonna buy these things. I need it. It's cost X amount of stats, and in the future it's gonna I will purchase for less amount. And talking about this, you have an episode with people talking about the 2025 cycle, and how the ETFs and money flow from Wall Street is going to change the cycles of Bitcoin. You think that we're going to see a different behavior from now on, instead of all the four year cycles? I think, hello. Now I cannot hear you. Hello.
Sorry, I lost you, but I think we're back.
No, because I didn't. So what I was asking, that in an episode with people, you discussed about the 25 cycles. Do you think that the inflow of the money from Wall Street, the companies, the ETFs, is going to change the Bitcoin cycles, the Bitcoin dynamic?
Yeah, this is an interesting discussion, because my latest podcast episode is with Nico Moran, where we talk about this, right? But yesterday I recorded an episode with Plan C, who is also someone who is really into like the Bitcoin power law, that shows the adoption of Bitcoin in many different ways, like how it's growing as a network. So I think, like, on one side, so my answer is I don't know. I also don't know, because I mean, this is the fourth cycle, right? So is 3 previous cycles where the having impact, at least in absolute terms, was, I would say, less impactful than the halvings that are coming, because there I think we really make big jumps in how much more scarce Bitcoin is becoming, right, in the issuance. So thinking about how that's going to go in the future, I do think that the 4-year cycles are dead, in a sense that there is a perpetual bid for Bitcoin now. So unfortunately, I have to say, the finance bros figured it out before all the plebs in the world figured it out. But they understand what this is. At least I assume so, right? Like, I mean, if you and I understand what this is, then I hope that, or I think that, to a degree, at least, some finance professionals also understand what this is, right? And they think that they should move into that. So although I would rather have more plebs have Bitcoin, this is inevitable, obviously. Bitcoin is also money for your enemies. That's the entire point. So that's okay. But I think there's a perpetual bid for Bitcoin, Bitcoin is only becoming more scarce. And I find it very interesting to think about, like, you have this Bitcoin power law, but you also have the idea of like an S-curve adoption if you think about technology adoption. So these two are kind of clashing for me, because in order for people to buy, there have to be sellers. There are enough sellers today, apparently, right? Although you also see the hodl waves, right? So how much Bitcoin has not moved in 1, 2, 3, 5 years. I think 3 years is between 55 and 60%. So those are people that I think know exactly what this is. These people are not selling until 2033 or something, when 99% of all Bitcoin are mined. So I honestly think that the 4-year cycle is dead, but we can still see drawdowns, like not 80%, but probably more like between 40 and 50. It's just human psychology. At some point, people get bored or think they can cash in, and because they still see it as an investment, and they will. But I think we're probably going to go up, sideways, little down, up, sideways, little down. But just more up, but at a slower pace than we had before, with less drawdowns, like not the 80% stomach turning drops again, luckily.
I think so. Bitcoin is gonna become boring because we are not gonna have these crazy ups, but we also don't have these crazy downs. I think that, yeah, it's gonna become boring, but it's gonna be. I believe the same. It's gonna go up with some, of course, not like a perfect line, but with all the adoption. And also, you mentioned the people who want to sell. Now we have another new instrument that are the loans. You can borrow against your Bitcoin. So even if you want to sell, you can opt not to sell. So that's something interesting.
Yeah, and I think that will only like grow, right? I think the rates right now are still quite expensive.
Yes.
I wouldn't borrow against my Bitcoin today, but eventually, if these rates come down, and I think we also get a better picture of the rate of the CAGR that would develop in the scenario that I just mentioned towards the future. It's probably going to be more attractive, but I think for now it's too expensive. But I mean, this is a way for banks, of course, to still make some return on their fiat money, although even at 8%, it is probably not even enough to mitigate the debasement, which effectively is probably at like 9, right? So yeah, I think that's actually an argument, even more to have Bitcoin and hold Bitcoin, just long enough, before well, the effective debasement is not 9 but 11 probably, right? And we will really see the cracks in the system open up more, because that is not what's been promised, of course, right? Like, what's been promised is like, it's 2%, it's 2%, it's 2%. But I mean, people are not stupid, right? Like, I mean, you're from Argentina. I recently heard, maybe this is fun to share, and you can confirm that at some point in Argentina, I don't know the time frame, but when you went for dinner, out for dinner in a restaurant, you had to pay when you sat down, and like not after the dinner, right? Someone told me
I
that.
don't. I don't know if I didn't face that. I didn't live through that. Probably would happen in the past. But I remember when my aunt started working, when she got graduated from the university and she got her first job. We went through a very high hyperinflation in the early 90s, and she told me that when she got the salary, the first thing she used to do is go to the supermarket and buy as many things as possible. And one of the things that happened at that time is that probably you go to the supermarket, you see, for example, this, and you say, okay, this costs, I don't know, $1, let's put in dollars. And when you go to the cash to the cashier to pay, it costs 1.50. So in the same trajectory from when you pick up and when you to pay, increase the price. Yeah, we had a very huge problem with inflation all the time. And in the past, you see that we used to pay with a lot of piles of cash for the restaurant and all the things because the inflation was super high. Now it seems to be a little bit under control, but it is what it is.
But that, right? I mean, also, I think a big thing that has helped me, Orange Pill, is just this example for everyone to understand. This is in a money system that's not different than the money system in your country. You are just lucky to be in another country and not experience this, right? There is zero difference between the money system in Argentina with the remote in the shop example and the money system that your country is in, right? And every country that is using the fiat money system is going towards this situation that you just described, right? So once you just accept that you cannot ignore that is also not a nice thing to realize. It's pretty fucked up. Okay, it shows you that you have no clue what money is. No one ever told you that. It's kind of weird that no one ever told you, right? That you now have to think for yourself, which is also scary. But you have no option. Again, what does it look like in 30 years? What does it look like? What's the trajectory, right? You don't even have to pinpoint the value of the money, or maybe there's a CBDC or whatever. Like, you don't even have to fantasize about it or ideate about it. The trend is down. Okay. Now go look up the Bitcoin chart, do all time 15, 16 years. What is the trend? Up. Okay. So that, I think if we have to make the case for Bitcoin as simply as possible, maybe that's it. But I mean, this is the use case. You're trying to protect yourself, right? I mean, like you said, your aunt went to college. She did her best. She fought, this is the job that I want to do. I'm going to sacrifice time and all these things, that everyone does when they go to college. And then when you're there, when you're working, you made it. You have to run from your office to the supermarket to spend the reward that you just got for spending all your time and energy that's gone forever, to spend it on stupid food that you might even throw away because you don't need it, right? Right? Like, just think about that. You're forced to do that. You're forced to do that because there's a third party that influences the reward that you get for spending your finite time and energy, and they can create it infinitely, which is just the dumbest trade that you can ever make in your life, and we should just shout this from the rooftop. Like, you're either okay with that or not. And if you're not okay with that, you need to study Bitcoin.
Yes, of course. I think that the main reason why people don't understand Bitcoin is because, or they don't want to study Bitcoin, is they don't understand money. Once you understand the monetary system and how it works, you would be crazy and run to study Bitcoin. And one of the things that I want to ask you, because I saw when you were talking with Robert Bridlow, Bitcoin is not only, as I said, that becoming a max is like falling in love. Bitcoin is not only money. We came for the money, and then we start learning a lot of things when Bitcoin. How does philosophy intersects with Bitcoin for you?
I think when you realize that no one ever taught you about money, that the money that you're forced to use is not working for you, but basically working against you, that you are not an actor in a monetary system, but you are a subject, that you have to do something about that, right? So that's step one. Like, you either do that or you don't, right? You see it as a problem or you don't. And then when you start studying, okay, what am I actually participating in? Where does that come from? What is money? What is fiat money? What is value? And then, eventually to property, scarcity, and, what we think is Bitcoin. Then you realize, okay, so if money is the most important technology in the world, basically, it's a way for humans to exchange value basically um, communicate also, right? When I buy something, I basically communicate to you that I find something valuable, especially when I tell you the amount of money units that I paid for something, right? So it is a tool for value exchange, but also a tool for communication to show what we value. A side step to that is, you know, there are buildings uh, that have been built 500 years ago that are still here. Think of something that has been built in the past 2 years in your area or in my area, that will stand for 500 years, right? There is no incentive to create something that will stand for 500 years because of the quality of the money, the bad quality of the money, right? So when you realize that the most important technology in the world is corrupted, is flawed, fundamentally flawed, is being used and abused by a select group of people, again, that don't care about your individual prosperity. And I never learned any of that in school, right? Or when I talk to masters of economics or people that have like a double master's in economics, and they tell me, I've never learned what money is. Okay. I was calculating things, units, but I never really understood what it was. You cannot come to a different conclusion that your lack of knowledge is on purpose. It's on purpose that no one ever really taught you what money is. So if the most important technology in the world is never, ever, ever explained to you, and all the thoughts you have around it are not true, what else isn't true that's been taught to you, right? And I think that, at least for me, has been a big trigger in regards to philosophical thinking and studying and looking at different subjects and trying to figure out, okay, but what could be true? What's the most probable explanation for the food, the medicine, the world history, the wars, like media, everything, right? And so I think that's why people talk a lot about, you go from the Bitcoin rabbit hole to another rabbit hole, but it could very well be for some people that they start in the medicine rabbit hole or the food rabbit hole and eventually also end up in the money rabbit hole, because the money, again, as a tool to communicate, exchange value, determine value, like communicate value, that is the thing that determines all the incentives to do stuff in all these other um, topics or industries or things that I just mentioned. So money is at the root of everything that you would want to fix in the world. And apparently a lot is broken in the world because the money is broken. And so I think it's just that. So once you realize that what you thought about money isn't true, or someone never ever told you, then what else isn't true? And it turns out quite a lot isn't true. So
Yes. Yes, I can tell you because I have a degree in economics and I really understood money, even though I come from a background myself in Austrian economics, but I understand money 100% when I understood Bitcoin. So that's the point. And as you said, in the university, they teach you this way is on purpose. So because it benefits to the people who have the main incentives to keep these fiat scam running. And as I always said, all the economical exchanges, interchanges of people are energy because everything it requires energy. It requires labor and time. And if you divide labor and time, it's energy. And when we have a currency like Bitcoin that is 100% pure energy and doesn't violate the laws of thermodynamic, this is perfect. It's the perfect race where economy needs to run.
I once listened to a podcast from Aubrey Marcus with a guest called Nate Higgins. That was totally unrelated, not related to Bitcoin, but they talked about energy. Like Nate Higgins is an energy expert. So At one point, Nate says, if you look around you, wherever you are, like in your room right now, everything you see costs energy to create or maintain. And so when I heard that, I was like, yeah, wow, yeah, that's true. And so if you work in whatever capacity, right, in a job or you have a venture, you are expending your human energy within a finite amount of time every day and eventually in your life, right? So you have a finite amount of energy that you can expend. And again, you don't know how much that is in total. So it is in that sense absolutely scarce and you don't know when you reach the limit, right? And so you use that energy and time, which is basically your productivity, to create or maintain products and services. But if I create a product and you want to buy it from me, and I say it's 100, money units, and you say, well, I want to buy it, but for 80, and I say, no, but I'll take 90, and you say, okay, and we shake hands. It seems like we agreed upon a value exchange totally voluntarily, right? And to a degree, we did. But as we just talked about, the money that you use to pay my reward in this value exchange is influenced by other people that can create infinite amounts of these money units, therefore debasing or devaluing all the existing amounts of money units. So although you and I agreed that 90 money units is a good reward for, you know, the energy expenditure and usage to create whatever the product is that you're buying from me, after I give you the product and you give me the 90 money units, at that moment, those 90 money units exactly represent the energy, right? So they are abstracted energy, but from any moment forward, they are worth less. A teeny tiny bit 10 minutes later, and then a day later, a teeny tiny bit more, right? But in a year, the effective debasement is between 9 and 12%, 8 and 12% globally. So whatever I spend my energy on to create whatever and sell to whoever is being stolen from me at an effective rate of between 8 and 12 percent. And that is a problem that everyone has. And I think this is one of the most important things, just to realize that if you just abstract or like take away the abstraction and just think about energy, and understand that everything around you costs energy to create or maintain, that's when you can start connecting that to what money should represent, and that when it can be created infinitely, it basically steals all the energy that's been expended, all the time that's been expended for the creation or maintenance of the products and services in an economy. That's the problem you have. That's the problem that millennials have. And again, this is only accelerating, right? So how are you going to plan for the future? Not only like your hopes and dreams and wants and all these things, but how are you going to mitigate this endless debasement of the reward that you're getting for spending your finite time and energy? And yeah, based on my research and my reflection, that is Bitcoin. That's the only thing that I can say. So I always just share, like, I think you should study Bitcoin and come to this conclusion yourself, right? Please don't believe me. Please do your own due diligence, and that is actually possible with Bitcoin, and that's another beauty of it, I think.
Excellent. And usually I have the last two questions, but one we talk about a lot because it's what do you think about the future of Bitcoin? I think we talk a lot about the future of Bitcoin. So I will go straight to the last question. The last question is, if you had the chance to sit down with Satoshi Nakamoto to have a coffee, what would you ask or say to him, her, or them?
I think it's them. Well, I would thank them, obviously, but also, oh yeah, I love this question. No, I think I would just thank them. Actually, I don't really have a question, um, because I think, some people might ask, how do you think it's working right now as compared to, when you let it loose or something? I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about. Like, what do you think of Bitcoin like today? But you know what it is like with any idea, what you start with is not eventually exactly how people are using it, right? There are evolutions based on either technicalities or the wants and needs from the people that are using it. And I think sometimes people get stuck in like the puristic way of thinking about how Bitcoin is described in the white paper, because and everything we just talked about now, the battle for money, the battle for the replacement of the most important technology in the world that's corrupted from the bottom up to fuck you, is the biggest battle that we could ever take on. Okay, and that takes time. So even though you understand what Bitcoin is and you think everyone else should have figured this out, it's not. Okay, so you need to be patient and diligent and just have trust, first of all, in yourself, that you are correct in your assessment of Bitcoin and why it exists, all these things that we talked about. And then hopefully you try to contribute to it and tell a lot more other people about it, like what you and I are attempting to do, right? And that's where my thought went. So I would just thank them and not ask them something like, "How do you think it's doing right now?" But yeah, I can imagine some people might. But this was that would be my rebuttal to that.
Yes, I also think that it's them. So I agree with you on that point. And yes, we are trying to do our best to orange pill as much people as possible to bring them into Bitcoin and to show them the technology, the money technology is corrupt, and we have a better solution for a better world. So, Bram, thank you very much for your time. How anything else you want to add, and how people can contact you?
Thanks for the invitation. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, if people want to follow me, I'm mainly active on X, where I'm Bram K at BRAMK. You can also find me on Noster. And if you want to look up my YouTube channel, that's Bitcoin Bram. And my podcast is called Bitcoin for Millennials, that you can find on any podcast platform and on my YouTube channel. So yeah, man, thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, and again, appreciate your time and this talk. And I hope, as I say to everyone, I hope to meet you in person in any conference, any Bitcoin conference, because it's nice to talk in the computer, but it's nicer to meet people in person.
100%. Thank you.
And thank you very much to everyone who is on the other side. If you like the episode, please thumbs up, share. As I always say, share this episode with the people you love, share this episode with the people you hate, because we must reach 8 billion people to bring into the Bitcoin train. You can follow us on X, the Bitcoin double underscore, our new YouTube channel, Bitcoin Libertarian, our new YouTube channel in Spanish, Bitcoin Libertarian ESP. See you in the next episode of our podcast. Stay humble, stack sats, and remember, we are all Satoshi.